Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. You're very welcome to Startup Canada's Industry Advisory Circle for tech-based and SaaS businesses. I'm Isabel Nolan. I'm the Director of Programs at Startup Canada. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I'm on today is located on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. As we are a national organization, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous people of land. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you're residing on here today as well. Today's session is being recorded and we'll add it to our resource guide along with any resources shared during today's session. So a little bit about Startup Canada, if you're not familiar with us. We're a national nonprofit that's the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools that they need to build a successful business in Canada. Since launching in 2012, Startup Canada has grown to support more than 130,000 entrepreneurs annually and an ever-growing community of ecosystem partners from coast to coast to coast. Startup Global is one of Startup Canada's flagship programs that supports entrepreneurs looking to export and expand their business internationally. From webinars to export readiness resources and industry advisory circles like this free program will build your international market entry strategy and plan. These industry advisory circles will provide you, the attendees, with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices within your sector. And hopefully you'll leave away today with some actionable takeaways and resources that you can implement into your business. So I'd like to take a moment to thank our wonderful partners. Our co-presenting partners are UPS and Export Development Canada. Our program partners are Forum for International Trade Training, also known as FITT. Our ecosystem partners are Scotiabank and Startup TNT, and community partners are GS1, North Forge, Toronto Region Bot, IPIC, and NCFDC. Before we kind of get on how today's session is going to look like, I'd love to invite one of our program partners, FITT, to talk a little about the organization and our partnership with them. So pleased to invite Laura Vergudo to the stage.
Great, thank you, Isabel. Hello, everyone. So as Isabel mentioned, FITT is a program partner with Startup Global this year and a program partner with the Startup Canada Tour. So we've been going across Canada. You know, we went to Winnipeg and Langley, and now we're heading to Moncton. And what I'm hearing from entrepreneurs and from the startups is that they're looking to grow global. Some are at different stages, just kind of wondering what to do next. So I'm here just to tell you a little bit about FITT. We are the global leader in international trade training, specific training on international trade to help you provide your services across international borders or sell your products across borders. And also we are the leader in certification of international trade professionals. As a program partner for Startup Canada, we are offering this year a discount for the startup community off of our FITT skills training. So everything from feasibility of international trade, which is a foundational course really, to help you assess, are you really in a position to grow global? What is required to grow global? What are your gaps? So everything from that first course all the way through to international sales and marketing, because it is a truly unique skill set that's required. There are a lot of complexities in international trade. So FITT is here to help you grow, to provide you with resources. We have some resources that are free. We have some courses and workshops that are available, and I will drop the link to the offer in the chat so people can check out our website. But and always here, I'm here in the industry circle. I've participated in a few, so happy to continue any discussions that we have in this industry circle. You can find me on LinkedIn, but really here to support and help all of you grow global.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. And yeah, we've dropped the link into the chat for more information on how you can avail of that offer. And thank you to Laura and the team at FITT for providing that to our community. Really encourage everyone to check out FITT and what they have to offer and avail of that discount. Alrighty, it's great to see some people putting their cameras on. I'm seeing some familiar faces in the room as well. So if you don't have your camera on, I encourage you to, but of course, if you're not comfortable, that's absolutely fine. So as I mentioned, today's session is for tech-based and SaaS market businesses. And before we get into that discussion, I want to give you all an idea of how the next hour and a half, 2 hours will sort of look like. So in a moment, I'm actually going to pass it over to the attendees to do a quick introduction of themselves. So you can do this either by being on camera or in the chat. If your camera's on, I'll assume that you're okay to introduce yourself on camera. And just tell us, your name, a little bit about your business, and perhaps what you're looking to get out of today's conversation. It's a great way for myself and the speakers to know who's in the room and how can we best support you during today's session. After that, we'll go to our expert talk. So our two speakers will take you through their journey within this space and kind of give you a sense of who they are and what their business is about. And then we'll move on to our panel discussion. So I have quite a few questions that I've drafted that the speakers have gone through already. However, I always want to prioritize our attendees' questions. So really do encourage you to ask your own questions. You can do this again by using the raise hand function on your camera, or you can ask it in the chat and I can ask on your behalf. But you'll hear me repeat that a few times because I just want to ensure that everyone gets what they came for out of today's conversation. And then the final piece is our networking breakout rooms. These last about 30 minutes or so. We'll put you into a few different rooms so that you can meet with each other, connect, and hopefully there's someone in the room that can support you, or that you're in the room with someone that you can support. But I'll give you more information on how those will work a little bit later. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our attendees to introduce themselves. Kim, Jacob, you're the first one on my screen.
Thanks, Isabel. Hello, everyone. My name is Kim. I'm based in Vancouver. My business is Avore Communications Group. We're an impact-driven communications agency that specializes in translation and content accessibility. And we work with tech companies to product-based companies, anyone that is trying to reach another language audience or trying to increase the accessibility of their content for people with a visual, hearing, or cognitive impairment. So I'm here today just to learn more about how to not only work with companies that are going global, but also companies that are wanting to work coming into Canada, so going into other countries, because we work back and forth between about 30 language pairs. And so thanks for this opportunity to be here today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Kim. Next up, we have Sadhna.
Good morning from Winnipeg. I'm Sadhna. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sadhna Isik. I'm a non-profit founder called Metalinguistic Foundation. I'm professionally electrical and computer engineer, graduated from University of Manitoba. I myself started a startup company, tech company, environmental and clean together. But right now, my first focus is a non-profit organization, which helps newcomer entrepreneurs who has linguistic difficulties, barriers, and them to get into the Canadian business landscape. So we provide language labs, clinics, circles, networking, improve tailored English for their business, let's say food, tourism, or tech, IT, whatever. And also we are giving, because the newcomer, they are having struggling to economical and get into the job. So we were trying to them to start their own skill and quickly adapt to Canada. Therefore, we are giving mental support, confidence, digital support. All these we are doing with our network of volunteers who are skilled and qualified. So we are expanding now, and we are telling our stories to everyone. So we will be happy. I put my connection in the chat box, so connect with us and help us tell our story. Whoever newcomer who wanted to come, join, and we support them. And we need partners as well. So that is my short story. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, Sadhna. And for anyone that just joined, we're just doing a quick introductions of ourselves. So, giving us your name, a little bit about your business and what you're looking to get out of today's conversation. I'll invite Alexandra from Lovejoy Pilates.
Thank you, Isabel. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandra, founder of the Lovejoy Pilates and the Lovejoy Pilates app, which is already available on Apple Store with clients in Dubai, in US, England, and various parts of Canada like Vancouver. Our platform empowers women, particularly those over 40 and new moms, through specialized online Pilates classes, which I teach. I'm a certified Pilates teacher, focused on pelvic floor strength and overall well-being. We're now expanding by launching an online store through Shopify, where we offer nutrition products alongside other Pilates gear and programs and providing a holistic approach to wellness. So I'm excited to connect with all of you and explore the opportunities for collaborating and growing in the global world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alexandra. Next up, Jessica from GiveWise.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to meet everyone. So my name's Jessica. I am with GiveWise Canada, which is a registered charitable organization. And so we created a platform that supports donors in actually giving seamlessly and very easily to registered charities in Canada. So we work with charities to understand what they need supports on, but we also work with donors, small organizations, medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, in really implementing giving strategies for their teams, for their brands, and using the platform as an easy way to give that's seamless, just creating a culture of community impact. So I'm glad to see everyone here, and I'm hoping to learn more about what everyone does and just connect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. Next is Tom from NeuroSpeech.
Hi, my name is Tom. I'm based in Toronto, Canada. I have co-founded a couple of companies. One is in US, one is in Canada. We are basically looking at the speech language pathology professionals, and we have AI-enabled communication clinic, clinical projects, and tools and solutions that is completely technology based. And we already released the clinical management solutions, and we already have the mobile apps is ready and to the launch. And now it's coming another versions of AI enabled, and I'm working with an AWS closely. And these are my stories, and I'm looking forward to expand my looking forward to two things. One is go-to-market strategy from the international market, as well as the expand to the Middle East as well as the Asian countries.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, Tom. Next, we have Ruth from Techity Consulting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Startup Canada, for organizing this meetup. My own Techity Consulting, where we provide managed tech support, IT consulting services for solopreneurs, small businesses, employees with side hustle that are overwhelmed with technology, so that they can focus on what they know how to do best. So our services are a wide range of, new business owners not quite sure what tool to use, making informed recommendations and helping them set that up, for existing businesses, helping them with website maintenance, figuring out, integrations, working with them across WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, and as well as Microsoft 365, the Google Workspace ecosystem, custom integration with Zapier and the likes. My background is in cybersecurity and compliance, and so I definitely bring that to the fore while implementing systems and strategies and solutions for our clients. I'm based in Ottawa, but we have clients across Canada, and yeah, excited to be here and network with other fellow tech founders and other fellow this small business owners. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, Ruth. That's everyone that has their camera on, but if there's anyone that doesn't have their camera on who would love to introduce themselves on camera, I'll give you a moment to do so now. Otherwise, you can add some information to chat. Oh, wonderful. Great. Jasmine, off you go.
Hi, this is Jasmine Josing from Montreal. So right now, I'm working on a go-to platform for connecting businesses to businesses and users to service providers. So for creating a seamless, endless job opportunities with the reliable, efficient, and AI and real-time tracking platform called Wisely Incorporation. So I'm here to connect with on this platform to have growth and to connect with peers, to have how to go into the market, how can I grow and create my MVP. So this is my story.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. Jill, hi.
Good morning. Seat Jill Sita said today, seat Unisiteen Haya, seat West Bank First Nation side of Ez. My name's Jill Sita. I am from the Unisiteen government. And I currently sit in West Bank, West Bank First Nations land. My company is a sustainable streetwear. I'm looking to launch globally, but it's just me and my company, so I'm doing everything I can to learn and grow. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, Jill. Alrighty, thank you to everyone who introduced themselves and both on camera and in the chat as well. Like I said, it really gives us a great sense of who is in the room, and it sounds like there's some fantastic businesses here, different stages, and various sort of like intersectionalities of tech and other industries as well. So I'd love to introduce two of our speakers here today. Speakers, when I say your name, maybe you can just give us a wave so they know who you are. So we have Dmytro Grechko, who is the founder and CEO of Deskree, and Kaylee Lieffers, who is the co-founder and CEO of Blanka. So thank you to both of our speakers for being here. And I'm going to pass it off to Dmytro to kick things off and tell us your story.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. In terms of my story, so originally immigrant in Canada. It's a funny story, but today is exactly 11 years as I've landed in this country. Originally came here as a student, and essentially I started building different software companies, and my past has started with building various agency businesses. And I was building, selling them. One of the last company that I was working on was essentially solving technology problems of like business problems of companies using technology. So more was different SMEs, enterprises in Canada and globally. And then at some point I realized that when I was looking through the timesheets of the engineers and trying to figure out where most of the time is being spent, I realized that that time was not spent on solving problems, but it was spent on creating the cloud infrastructure and the other components that seemed auxiliary to me at that time. And I went on and I decided to create a solution for that. I started building it myself. Then, long story short, the agency clients started coming and saying, well, can we use the tool instead of your service? And that I think was the moment where I realized, well, we have a product opportunity. And I came to my wife and we just got kids at that time. First kid 2 weeks after she was born. And I come to my wife and says, hey, I have a wonderful idea. I'm about to fire all the agency clients. I'm about to reduce the team size to like 5 people out of 50. And I'm building a startup. which is by far the most difficult conversation I had in my life. But at the end of the day, she jumped on board, and that's how I started building the startup. So my startup journey basically started in 2021 as we were started building the product. To early 2022 is when we raised our first venture capital money as a part of our pre-seed. Our first investor were Hustle Fund, Foreign Ventures, and N49P. We're super proud to have them. It was a very interesting story how we got our first check, but I'll leave it for later. After that, we started growing as a company. We went on from 100 users to 1,000, then 5,000, 10,000, started growing, raised our second round of funding, now raising the third. And with customers being both located here in Canada and as well as in the United States, Europe, and other places as well. And yeah, so essentially our product is deep in the tech sector. We develop something called atomic computing and help people create backend APIs and cloud infrastructure a lot faster than conventional systems. And that's where we exist. So we're more of a dev tool side and deep tech as a company, which has its own challenges and benefits, but that's a part of the story itself. So today we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. And I think I'll pass the microphone to Kaylee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dmytro. And yeah, Kaylee, off you go. Tell us your story.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Super excited to be here. Quick kind of intro about myself. I'm one of the co-founders and I'm the CEO at Blanka. I am Vancouver based. And so I guess a little bit about myself, started my career in a much more corporate environment in management consulting. And it's kind of where I fell in love with technology and just how transformative it can be to an organization, big or small. After a few years in management consulting, I burned out, and I also kind of realized that the corporate world just wasn't what was lighting my fire in a lot of ways. And so shifted gears and moved towards more of the startup world, which is something that I always had my eyes on. My parents are entrepreneurs, and I'd kind of convinced myself I needed to go into corporate to build this toolbox before I had the skills to be in startups. I don't think that's necessarily true, but it did do me very well to build that kind of corporate muscle. I worked for a number of different startups and scale ups from kind of 2016 onwards, largely in marketplace development, e-commerce. I was also the co-founder of a tech talent startup out of Calgary called Mob Squad, where we helped build teams of developers. And it was more of a talent play than a tech play. And so after a few years there, I kind of put a bow on top of my role and decided I wanted to get back into tech and, fell really in love with e-commerce and worked in a few different startups in that space. Then in 2020, I attempted to launch my own direct-to-consumer skincare line in the sunscreen space. This was kind of at the tail end of COVID. I always wanted to start a brand, and I kind of figured, I have the experience of running a startup. I understand e-commerce. Why not start my own brand? And I quickly realized how challenging that process was when it came to going out and sourcing suppliers. There's over 13,000 manufacturers for skincare out there, so I had no idea where to start. And then I had to order inventory, and that cost a lot of money. And then I had to store all my inventory in my small Vancouver apartment. And then I had to handle all the fulfillment. And so every step of the way of launching the sunscreen line was really painful. And so I kind of stepped back and realized, okay, I'm not the only entrepreneur facing this problem because there's a massive influx of independent brands that are coming to market. In fact, 25% of the global $600 billion beauty industry is being driven by independent brands. And so that was kind of like an interesting tailwind that I saw an opportunity where, what if we actually build tech that's enabling these entrepreneurs and enabling and fixing all the problems that I faced when trying to launch a brand? And so in 2021, we launched the first iteration of Blanka, which is a platform that makes it easy for anybody to launch and scale a branded skincare, beauty, hair care line. I think when I step back and look at what we've built, it's been such a fun journey because we're at the core enabling entrepreneurship. We've had some brands start at zero and build 6-7 figure businesses, which has been really cool. And so it's been a fun journey. Similar to Dmytro, we've raised some venture. We're both Forum portfolio companies, so we should jam on that. And yeah, we kind of skipped the process of fundraising as long as possible. And if I could give any advice to everybody here, it's like hold off on taking money as long as you can. We bootstrapped, we leveraged grants, we tried to drive revenue as much as possible. And only once we started feeling a true, limitation of our growth did we raise an institutional round. And so we raised a $3 million seed round last year. There's some pros and cons to raising venture, but it was the best decision we ever made. We have an incredible cap table, and I'm happy to chat about that a little bit more. And right now, our focus as a business is just growth. I want to grow a lot and really quickly and gear up for our Series A. So yeah, happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of a quick overview of who I am and what we're building.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kaylee. So yes, hopefully that gives everyone in the room a better sense of who our speakers are today. Maybe you can start thinking about questions. Maybe they spoke about something that you are currently going through at the moment, or perhaps their expertise will be able to support you in something. So we'll move on to our panel discussion now. And like I said, I've plenty of questions that I've drafted for our speakers, definitely far too many for us to get through during today's session. But I just want to reiterate, we're here for you. So if you have any questions at any time, please use the raise hand function, or you can use the chat, and I'll prioritize any of your questions. But perhaps I can start us off to, maybe warm everyone up in the room. So I first wanted to talk about market selection and research. And I think that there was someone that mentioned wanting to kind of delve into the go-to-market strategy aspect of things. So to Dmytro and Kaylee, what are some of the key factors that these early stage tech and SaaS companies should be considering when they're selecting their target market for expansion? Dmytro, maybe I'll go to you first.
Sure. I think one of the biggest thing, like there's definitely a lot of things to discuss. And I think the one thing I would love to say here is that obviously knowing your customers very intimately, very well, in terms of their average spend, decision-making process, and all the other things are very important. You can probably find a lot of information. Probably I'm not the first person to tell you about it. Thing that I kind of rediscovered for myself when I started working on a startup was that there's different go-to-market motions, in a sense where, to give you an example, like we're a software company, we're selling data, pretty much cloud solutions and developer for software. So for this one, and usually in startups, you see three predominant go-to-market motions. There's product-led growth, there's product-led sales, and sales-led growth. The examples would be PLG is something you go sign up on a platform or a product, start using that yourself, never interact with the sales team. The second types of products is where you go out and there is a product, you sign up, but then there's someone from sales team that reach out to you and says, hey, do you want to update to this and this and this? So this is something called sales, product-led sales. And there's sales-led growth where you have where you have the sales teams, BDRs, and people like that engage and sell you products. So important thing is most of the startups, when they start building the product, they immediately think about either product-led growth or just sales-led growth and separate things. However, most of the time you're actually using a combination of different methods. And what's important to realize is that depending on your average check of your customer, and you might employ different strategies. For example, if your customer pays you $100 a month, and it's probably not a good idea to go with that with a sales team, because that will cost you a lot more to maintain the sales team, and because the check size is pretty small, then product-led growth makes a lot more sense. So I think, like, to sum it up is like knowing your customers, the buying process, the decision-making process, and all the other aspects are insanely important. But on the other hand, the process of going after those customers is also extremely important. It's not just about like high-level marketing or Google Ads or things like that. It's more concrete in a sense where you know what does the decision-making process look like, how you organize the sales process, and do you do it with the hands of people? Do you do that only through the self-serve approach, or there is a mixture of both, which is the case most of the time? But knowing that, I think it's extremely, extremely important.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking us through that, Dmytro. Kaylee, anything to add there and from your own experience with this?
Yeah, actually, Dmytro, I think that structure is exactly the right way to explain like a good go-to-market. For us at Blanka, I'll just give a bit of an illustrative example, is we were pure product led, which meant that we didn't have a sales team. We barely had a support team because we bootstrapped the business. And so we couldn't afford that. And so the simplest way to build out the platform and the way that the platform works really well is through product led. But we had to like fill the top of funnel in order to get customers. We also didn't have money to run ads or do any of those things. And so I took a very like guerrilla approach to filling top of funnel for product led. I'll give you one example is before we even launched the app, I created a Facebook group, and Facebook groups are so interesting. I think that there's like an untapped potential in Facebook groups if it makes sense for you. Like Dmytro wouldn't make sense for your business, but for our business in beauty and private label, there's like tons of groups, thousands of people in them, who are doing like really archaic business building in the industry. And so I just went and spammed these groups and I was like, hey, I'm inviting you to an exclusive Facebook group where we're changing the way that starting a beauty brand works. And I built this massive group by spamming people. I had 100 messages I could send every night, and then Facebook would lock me out. And every single night I would send these messages. And this Facebook group ended up becoming our very first customers who then onboarded through our product led platform. I can give you like probably 10 other examples of how we just like were very hacky in the way that we got those first customers around go to market. That being said, 3 years later, we are building out a sales function. And that's been super interesting because it's allowing us to go up market and bring on larger contract value customers. And so the one learning is like, I think personally, I had a bit of ego around being like, no, we just built this like massive business on product led, fully bootstrapped, organic growth. Like I was just loved saying that. But I should have built a sales function earlier. That's what I'm learning now. And so I think that's been like a really interesting learning. And so absolutely, you're probably going to need a mixture of those three in some shape or form.
Excellent. That's so interesting to learn about that, Kaylee. That's definitely one way of kind of finding your customers. Like you are literally going out and finding your customers yourself. Laura, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, it's really interesting to hear companies go to market strategy, but I'm just here to just plant a seed that just because, and I'm not insinuating that this is what you're doing only for the Canadian market, but just because a go-to-market strategy, when strategy works in the domestic market, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work in your target market. So it's about understanding, doing that research. How do your customers behave? What are the preferences? What are the regulations in the market? So researching each individual market, and sometimes you do have to change your go-to-market strategy for your target markets. So just keeping that in mind, that it can't be cookie cutter. You do have to change it up, just like you would have to change up your marketing mix, and go-to-market strategy is one of those, is how you're going to place your product in the market or deliver your service. So changing up that mix according to each priority market that you're going into.
That's an excellent point, Laura. Yeah, and actually, Kaylee, to go back to you, have you since like you said, you're kind of building that sales force, if you will, for your organization. Have you noticed shifts in how you approach or deal with customers from different markets now that you've kind of stepped away from that initial go-to-market strategy?
I mean, for us, 90% of our customers are in the US, and we've kind of just started to realize there's such a massive market there. When we get inbounded by internationals, we'll explore it, but it's not really worth our time right now. Another example is I spent some time in Korea in May just because there's incredible production happening out there, and spent a lot of time with people from the Middle East, and they were like, wow, your platform would crush it in the Middle East. They're like, how do we get Blanka there? And I was like, I don't have time for this. Like, I need to focus on just like what we're building now, because it's, to your point, Laura, like a completely different business in terms of messaging, in terms of like the go-to-market, in terms of the customers. And so we haven't really, looked into that as much. Like, we do get international customers, but 90% of our customers are in the US. And like for now, that works really well for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so when it comes to, you've kind of gone through that market selection research, and you've gone through your go-to market strategy. When you're building out your business model adaptation for these new markets, any advice on how entrepreneurs can adapt their business model to suit a new market? Sort of to Laura's point, it's not necessarily one size fits all, the sort of cookie cutter. What works in Canada might not work in your new market. So any tips or advice on how businesses should or could adapt their business model for their target market? Dmytro, maybe I'll pass to you first.
I think that that's ultimately depends on a few things. If you're changing the market, it's because for many products as well, like there is no, I wouldn't say there's a lot of border specific. For example, in DevTools, right? The way that the engineers team work in Canada and US, in Europe is pretty much exactly the same. And the messaging and even the language, right? All the documentation on the technical side is mostly written in English. And it's kind of like a universal, like one big family all around the globe, which is like fascinating, but comes with its own challenges. I would say for us internally, the biggest change was once we started going from working with smaller companies, smaller startups building MVPs, to larger companies building like large production scale systems, into even larger enterprises. Navigating the decision-making process and what are the perceived value in your product based on the size of the customer was a big thing for us to realize. Is because, for example, if we're saving a startup like 10 to 15% on the cloud computing costs, well, that might not necessarily be something big if a startup is spending $45,000 a month. But once you go to a company that is spending like 50, 100,000, 500,000, $1 million a month on cloud, then that becomes a significant thing. So I think that even if your customers seem to be in the same market, for example, like with us, it's about technology and engineering, yet the size of the customer might really determine what are the things they place the value the most, and how they perceive things differently, and what is the difference between processes. Enterprise customers care about the compliances and the other things, and the sales cycle is pretty long, like 6 months at least, sometimes year and a half. On the other hand, smaller customers don't care about the compliances, care about the other things, but they prepare to spend a lot less, and they have less resources to sustain certain things. So I think understanding the impact of the size of the customer, given your solution, is also very, very impactful. And that decision-making process might be also different geographically as well. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dmytro. Kaylee, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I feel like you kind of spoke to it just now as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing your products and your services. So maybe you can each speak to the challenges that you faced when you were initially pricing your product or services, and then like what did you learn from that? How have you adapted since? Kaylee, maybe I'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, we just made it up. I'm gonna be really honest. And I think for us, there was some benchmarking we could do in the industry, but our business is really different because it's subscription, and there's just no subscription-based businesses in like private label. So we priced it pretty low. I've gotten a lot of feedback that we're not priced properly. We increased pricing back in April, and that's been really interesting. Without going into too much detail, I think testing out pricing is something that's super important and we could probably do better on. By changing our pricing in April, we doubled our ARPU and we could have done that a lot sooner. So that's one piece. I think like if you have a sales led approach where you're sending out like quotes and RFPs, that's a great place to constantly test pricing because you're going to get feedback from the customer on if they have sticker shock or not. And so we've learned our business has two sides now. As I mentioned, we have our product-led app, but we have what's called Blanka Labs where we're doing large custom formulations for celebrities and big brands. And so we're really testing pricing on that. And so I think one thing that we've learned is like tracking all these different quotes that we've given out and like commentary on what's worked and what hasn't. I don't have a perfect formula for nailing pricing. Dmytro, maybe you do. Your business is a little bit different than ours. I think the biggest thing is just testing and having like very good tracking around your data. I can't emphasize having like great data and a really good data analyst to be able to help you understand what's going on. Because after we changed pricing, I was worried that we had like a downtick a little bit in some of our numbers, but actually I was interpreting everything wrong and our ARPU was going up, our churn was going down because there's better qualified customers coming through. And so just having the right people who understand the data trends is also really critical when you're running these different tests.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, Dmytro, I'll let you speak to that and then Laura, I'll get to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for us, the biggest mental shift was it's also I think there's two underlying questions when it comes to pricing: is how to charge your customers and how much. For us, the first thing was how, because what we started was a traditional SaaS model where like, oh, you can have these and these features for this amount of money per month, which is like a very standard way of thinking. And we're kind of like essentially like, let's throw it out there to like see if it works. It didn't. So, and the reason why it didn't was that we essentially mixed two components. One was the SaaS pricing when you paid for certain features, and the other one was usage-based model where you're paying for the essentially the compute power that you're renting from us as a data center, pretty much. And what we realized was like that pricing model has to fit the customer. If we're placing most of the bets on the usage-based model, and then we're going after small companies building small products that would naturally incur very little of usage, that model doesn't make a lot of sense because you're trying to sell very high volume of very low usage and charge for the usage cost. It didn't play well. The other component of that was like when we looked at it and we started asking like, what are the things that people value the most in the product and what are the auxiliary parts? And we realized that most of the things that we tried to sell were auxiliary things and they valued the usage base. So what we ended up doing at the end of the day, we completely dismantled the SaaS component. We said like, there's no SaaS anymore. You're paying for usage. All the other tools will give you for free because you like it. That makes you life comfortable and that essentially helps you to use the product more. And that's what we monetize on. The more you use the product, the more you pay. If we can make that process more comfortable for you of doing that, we wouldn't really charge something separate for that because that will inspire you to use the product more. But even like in terms of that, how and navigating playing, this is a very important part. The second part was how much we charge. The initial thing we've done, let's make it cheaper than anybody else. I think a lot of companies are trying to do that. And I think this is one of the most, one of the not the most smartest decisions that I've done because technically speaking, you're trying to be everything. You're trying to be faster. You're trying to be better looking. You're trying to be cheaper and all those things at once. Funny point is that human brain is not able to process all the value props at the same time. And when you go to people and say like we are faster, we're cheaper, we're this and this and this, like, well, are you faster or you're cheaper? One of our investors, and that used to be my favorite marketing person in the world, he said, look, if you're selling a shirt that does not tear or does not like you cannot sell a shirt that boasts like very strong and doesn't catch any dirt. Like you have to pick one because that's easier for people to understand. So and the size of that, if you have a lot of value that you're delivering, don't be afraid of charging a little bit more for that. If you're in a business of saving money, well, you should be charging at least like 30 to 50% of what you saved to a company. If you save the company $100,000 and you charge just $1,000 for it, well, you're not in the business. You should be charging at least like 30, 40. So in general, I think the right pricing strategy, it consists of two things: is how you charge people, experiment with that, see where the value is the most. And the second one is how much. And usually the rule of thumb is don't undercharge. It doesn't really help a lot.
Excellent advice, Dmytro. Thank you so much for taking us through that. Laura, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, wow, because I'm a prof, so I teach. And so everything that the two of you are saying, I'm like, oh my God, that's what I tell everybody. It's, that unique value proposition. It's not always a race to the bottom. Like you said, Dmytro, it's not always about offering the cheapest price. It's about building value, but understanding how, what your unique value proposition is. And I'm going global here, because you have to understand what your value proposition is in each market. And I love what you said, Kaylee, about when you went to Dubai, and they were saying, I think it was Dubai, where they're saying, oh my God, your company here, your platform would just kill it here. But you also, like, when you go to pricing, you really have to understand your total costs. So what is it going to cost you to start doing business with customers in that target market? And initially it's going to cost you a lot. There's going to be trips in market, there's going to be negotiation, you're going to have to find the right channel partner if that's how you're going to deliver your platform, or like through a VAR or whatever that might be. So there's going to be those initial costs, but you have to understand what all of those costs are in order to set your pricing, because otherwise, how can you set your pricing if you don't understand that big picture? And just another point, if you're selling, I know this is tech-based companies, SaaS, but if you have hardware and software, so if you have a product, you're going to have to pay particular attention to how you're going to get that hardware in the market. So that's when we think of things like Incoterms. With the rail strike right now, I just think, oh my goodness, like moving product, it's really important to understand what Incoterms are. So if you are a company that's not just strictly like a platform and you're actually moving hardware, you have to think, there are other considerations to keep in mind, but it all boils down to, understanding truly what your costs are, if there are modifications for your platform in each market, and then your price, and how are you going to, like your channel partner, who you're going to use in the market affects the pricing too, and which currency you quote in. So there are a lot of pricing considerations, whether you sell, service or a product. There are a lot of pricing considerations when you're growing global.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Laura, for giving us your thoughts on that. Laura's a certified international trade professional, so she's got some great pieces of advice and nuggets of gold for everyone. So I'll reiterate, please do reach out to FITT for any sort of questions you might have around bringing your business global. I want to pause on my questions just to give anyone the opportunity to ask something, and maybe our speakers have mentioned something that you'd like to go a little bit deeper on, or if you just want to ask a question that we haven't even covered yet. But I do want to give the floor to our attendees. You have a question. And if not, I can keep going with my questions. That's okay, but want to provide an opportunity for anyone. Yes, Alexandra.
I quickly chatted in the chat box there about upgrading my website to Shopify so I can have that global access. And I know it's a little bit more costly, but I know it will simplify a lot of the automated systems like drop shipping and all that. I just want to confirm by the experts, is that a safe move to do? Because it's a little bit scary having that minimum expenses that I'm managing to cover, and then Shopify is a little bit pricier, but it's global, right? And it's functional, and it's definitely a safer way to safer way to transfer, right? I just want to confirm before I do that big move that you guys know what you can share about this.
Happy to comment on that. I guess the one quick question I have for you is, your objective for your website, is it to sell e-commerce products?
Yes, because so far I'm just sharing Amazon links and I'm giving my link, so I get, you know, Amazon credits and stuff. But I want to actually grow my own nutrition, my own greens, superfood greens and protein smoothies, and I want to label them as Lovejoy. And I'm thinking this is perfect transition to go to Shopify for that, but I'm not really sure. So if anyone has done that, I would love the experience to share their experience.
I'm happy to share my opinion in the sense that like Shopify is the best in class when it comes to e-commerce, especially global. The other two options you could look at is like Wix or WooCommerce. Wix does not have the infrastructure necessarily that Shopify does yet, and WooCommerce is a headache because it requires a lot of development skills to build out. Shopify has been built so that anybody can build a website with them. Of course, you know, there's so much you can build off of that, right? If you want it to be the best website in the world, you can bring in an agency, but Shopify is built so that you or me or, you know, our parents could build a Shopify site. And so when you're thinking about it going global, absolutely. Just in June, they released like a brand new feature that facilitates better global selling. So they're very focused on that. So if that's your goal, I would without question recommend Shopify.
Thank you. I have peace of mind. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexandra. Thanks, Kaylee, for taking that question. Tom, you have your hand up.
Hi, thank you for that. Interestingly listening this topic, and I'm getting my product, healthcare product, SaaS healthcare product is ready for launching in the international market. The product is ready. The point is this: like you talk about the GTM, you talk about the pricing strategies and all. But my point is, what is the most interesting aspects that I, as a person, as a founder, to consider when I expose our SaaS healthcare digital product to the international market?
That's a great question. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your business, Tom, just so our speakers have a better sense?
Yeah, my business is a SaaS product which will have a clinical management solutions, especially for speech language pathology. That's a professional, and we are very niche to that, and we understand that all the products which is as a clinical management system, which is focused on the way either mental health or other kind of therapy systems, but not for the speech and language. So we are working closely with the professors and other professionals in the speech therapy to fix that part for the speech therapy. So our product is completely a clinical management system for the speech therapy field.
Thank you. And so is your question kind of centered around your sort of unique selling point when you're taking this to the global market?
Yeah, that's a one point. Yeah. How do I expose this product? Like, what is from your experience, you will definitely has done trial and error method. Something has clicked. You said, okay, this can be a unique selling point to take it at this in this kind of world, especially the US market or kind of the Middle East market, or how it is actually from your experience.
Great question. Dmytro, Kaylee, who would like to?
What is like one of the main things, like what is I hate this question because it basically, like, every time you go fundraising, it's like the first thing everybody asks and you have to frame it and so on. But at the end of the day, there is nothing better to describe it as like, what is the problem you're solving, right? So like, what is the absolute excruciating pain that somebody experiences that your product addresses like nothing else, right? And then the next best thing is, once you can clearly define what it is, go ahead and test it. Talk to people, and just basically try to figure out, like, what is the problem, who experiences this problem, and go and talk to those people and figure out how to sell it to them. Like, when we were launching our platform initially, we were doing a lot of user interviews, and pretty much out of like those 200 interviews that we've done, the first 50 of those people became our first 50 users. Right? and then our first five customers. It's funny, like, because you also can find you can find investors like that as well. In interesting fact, like our first customer became our first investor, and then he became now our head of sales team. So it's like you never know what's going to happen, but the idea is just talk to them a lot. The more you talk, the more you realize what they value, what they don't, how to sell to them for how much, and so on and so forth. And that's the best thing to do for many people, including myself. That was one of the hardest thing to do, but that just got to be done.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I was literally going to say customer calls. That's how you figure it out.
Thank you.
And if I can just add, when you're doing that prospecting, I think that trade shows are an underutilized resource. I mean, that is such a great source of primary research, because you go to a trade show, if it's an industry specific trade show, you can speak with people, potential customers, potential like channel partners from all over the world, and you can ask them what they value. So I think going to an industry specific trade show, I think can be just such value when you're trying to determine what your value is really in that particular market. So I've gained so much market intelligence by attending. I've done more trade shows than I care to mention, but you know, that intel that you gather at a trade show, whether you have a booth or you're walking the trade show, it's unbelievable because everybody's there under one roof. So sometimes it's worth it to make that investment to go to an industry specific trade show.
Yeah, my advice is don't get a booth unless you've walked the trade show before. Otherwise, you're going to blow $5,000 on something that probably isn't worth it. We've actually found good value in walking trade shows where our customers are the exhibitors, because then like we're guaranteed to hit each of them, versus like I think some people go to trade shows and like hope is their strategy that they'll just have a random bump in with somebody that's value add, and like you have to be way more intentional. So I agree, trade shows, but you have to have such a solid strategy in order to execute and make it worth your while.
Yeah, or utilize, Tom, I don't know which province you're in, but utilize the provincial trade departments. So you can exhibit under, you know, the umbrella of the provincial government, or, you know, the Canadian umbrella, where it's a fraction of the cost of participating. So we used to do that. I was in the clean technology space. So we would go to the, you know, the major clean tech shows, and we would go under the Ontario umbrella. And it was unbelievable. They would go so far as arranging B2B meetings. So you can do trade shows in a cost-effective manner, but you have to be, you know, you have to be connected with your trade advisors from your province, and the TCS, of course, the Trade Commissioner Service with Global Affairs Canada.
I'm also in the Ontario region. Yeah.
Ontario?
Yes. Yeah.
So they have trade specialists per sector. So you might want to find out who that person is and connect with them, because there's, you know, that's how we found out about all these clean tech shows and trade missions and different initiatives. They want to find out which Ontario, you know, which provincial companies are actively looking for new markets. They'll help you.
Thank you. I'll do that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great question, Tom. And I'm hoping that it's useful for everyone else in the room as well. But thank you, Laura, Kaylee, and Dmytro for providing your perspectives. I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about funding and financing. I'm sure there's some people in the room that might have some questions around this. And Dmytro and Kaylee, I know you both spoke about, briefly spoke about your journey or experience with funding, the different sort of avenues you went down for financing. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper, if that's okay, in each of your experiences. So Perhaps you can, Dmytro, I'll go to you first. So I know you said you've raised quite a bit, you've gone through a few rounds. Can you talk us through that process a little bit, from trying to connect with the investors, maybe how you got invested with them or connected with them, and like the process of pitching, the due diligence part that comes after it, and any sort of advice you might have for someone going down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first line of advice is, Kaylee said, like, if if you're in a position where you can bootstrap as much as you can humanly do that. Because at the end of the day, I think the biggest misconceptions of people when it comes to VCs is that, and I was in the same pace, is like when you get the first money, that just means something. That means and a lot of people think, oh, you just get immediate access to some sort of resources and you're getting something that other people don't. No, actually, no. The other thing that people think is like, oh, like if I get somebody from VC Planet on board, they will not let me fail. They will guide me through certain things. No, it's not going to happen. At the end of the day, I think one of the most important thing is like you have to have the product that works, that customers love. Everything outside of that is just a way for you to speed things up at the end of the day. So I think like treating VC capital as not something you're chasing for the like that idea of like I'm gonna raise a big round, I'm gonna have a lot of money to do things. No, like that's not a good idea. At the end of the day, if you can bootstrap it, do as much as you can until you need the money to actually grow. And I think this is the best scenario. This is not always possible. Like if you're in deeper tech, it's pretty difficult to do something like that. Like for example, that's a position like we pretty much found ourselves in. But for everything else or like other industry, I think bootstrapping is great. In terms of VC process itself, there's a wonderful book by Eric Band from Hustle Fund. It's called Raise Millions. I love this. I really recommend it to anyone looking to fundraise, which is basically just tells how you organize the process. Like my process has been extremely painful initially because I didn't know how it's done. I started fundraising first time when I had 2 months of runway left on my own money. And I started doing that at the end of November, which is the worst time of any part of the year to fundraise. I didn't know anyone in the industry, so it was literally cold email, and I cold email like more than 1,000 different partners within the course of a month and a half, and that was brutal. And we just like the first person who offered the check was Jonah Medanik from Forum Ventures. Like I still consider that person to be a saint to me, and I absolutely love Forum in all its aspects. But like one thing is you got to understand the process, you got to understand the game and how to play it. Like there is seasonalities involved in fundraising. Like there is parts of the year where you fundraise when you don't. There is also the process of building a relationship with your investors in advance before you actually go out and ask them for money, which is extremely important. That how it's going to help you fundraise in the future as well. Because like when we go out fundraise right now, like we already have a list of a few hundred funds that we've engaged with that heard our pitches before that told us no or ignored us and so on. And then all of a sudden you're into that, they're like, oh, like they had something great. Let me talk to them. And that's how you build a relationship as well. So I think like there's definitely a lot of things to talk about how you navigate the fundraising process. I don't think I can fit in 5 minutes, but the general idea is try to figure out a way to not fundraise as much as you can to get your revenue numbers up, to understand your customers and so on and so forth. If you're in a position where you have to fundraise, don't think that is going to happen in 2 or 3 months. That if it happens, it's awesome. Most likely 6 to 9 months. That's more of a realistic, especially given the market. But before you do it, talk to the other founders in person. Ask them about how they've done it. Read like the Race to Million books or other piece of things to get ready for that, because that's a process that will take you full time for a certain period of time. If you don't have a co-founder, it's going to be away from your product. It's going to be away from sales cycles and many other things, which is also not pleasant. So get ready for this. Don't do it like part-time or something. Get ready for this as a process. And if anybody will have some more specific question on that, this go or after that, would love to answer that as well.
Great response and advice, Dmytro. And Kaylee, I know you said you raised last year, but you bootstrapped as much as you could and you went through grants. So can you tell us about that process and also, about the grants? Where did you find them? What types of grants were you utilizing?
Yeah, so the main types of grants out there are hiring grants. by and large. I think there's a lot of seasonality around grants, and you have to really think ahead in terms of which ones you want to use. For example, Venture for Canada, if you want to hire an intern, you need to hire way before you actually have them start so that you can apply for the Venture for Canada. The other thing that's challenging about grants that I quickly figured out is that you have to still pay the salary up front, and then you get the funding reimbursed to you down the line. So you still need some sort of cash flow. We actually had to get an operating line of credit in order to support that, because we actually didn't have the funds in the company to pay some of these salaries. And so those were some challenging realizations when building the business, but grant funding was amazing. I mean, the hiring grants around internships in BC, we have Work BC. On a lot of the other provinces have like better grant funding than BC does, in fact. But then there's some other ones as you scale. IRAP was amazing in terms of getting the funding for building out your tech. Getting IRAP funding is not a linear process. You need to build a relationship with an ITA. You need to convince them that you have a good business. They need to want to allocate funding to you. I should write an entire blog just on getting IRAP funding. And then finally, there's other government support like Can Export, which we were just talking about in the chat. Can Export will fund you going internationally. So I was in Korea this year. I have a team in Arizona right now, and that's going to be supported by Can Export. And so there's a lot of different grants. I'm not going to like name all of them, but I think just doing your due diligence on researching. Also, if anybody here knows Brianna Blaney, who started the company Pocketed, it's essentially a marketplace of Canadian grants. It's awesome, and it's a great way for you kind of to see what's available. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give anybody is that you need to know what grants are coming through, because when they're open, sometimes it doesn't even get announced. And so getting on every newsletter, the Startup Canada newsletters, the DMZ newsletters, just following, because usually in the footnotes they have an update. And then making yourself a note. I have a recurring event in my calendar that reminds me to check on certain grants and when they're going to open. I still don't trust my HR people to do it, so I still do it myself. That's how I think about grant funding. We still lean on grants to an extent, not as massively as we used to, but they're amazing. On the fundraising side of things, I wouldn't even know where to start explaining the process of fundraising in such a short period of time. It's an art and a science. After the process of fundraising, I wrote a document of some of my hot tips for some of my fellow founders. The document turned into, I think it's like 8 pages long. It actually got picked up by Forbes last November and was published. And so I'll share a link to the document here in the chat. It's all about how we ran our process. Dmytro's absolutely right. You start fundraising before you actually start fundraising. You're building relationships for months. We were building our investor newsletter list. We were sending out updates. So by the time that we officially fundraised or started fundraising, some of the investors on our list had known me for half a year, and they wrote a check without me needing to pitch them. And so there is a process. It's painful. As Dmytro says, it pulls you away from the business, but if it is the right time for you, it can be so value add. You just don't want to be in a position of desperation, because that means you're going to get a shitty valuation. That means you're not going to get good cap table. And that means that like the investors can kind of smell it and they don't want to be involved in that. So just be careful about the timing and the way you portray yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we've got some great resources being shared in terms of grants in the chat. So please do check those out. And I see a few attendees adding some stuff in as well. So thank you everyone for sharing. We will be putting anything that's shared in today's session. We'll also put into our resource guide as well. So if you don't get the link, that's okay. We'll capture it for you. Laura, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say any kind of funding, yeah, it's like a marathon for sure, but there's so much importance to being prepared and creating your, whether you call it an export plan, whether you call it an international business plan, an international sales and marketing plan. You basically, you do the research, you get that intelligence, you figure out your strategy, put it in a document, concise. Have your strategy, because you can literally take it to the bank. So I don't know how you got your, you know, your bridge financing, whatever it is, but when you create that international business plan or that export plan, and you've figured out everything, you whether you pitch that to investors, whether you pitch that to your bank manager, they want to see that you're being strategic about this, and then they're more likely to loan you money or invest in your company. And I did that when I was working for a manufacturer, and I created an international sales and marketing plan. And they, you know, the funding manager said, well, if every company created this, if every company put this amount of work into it, it would make my life so much easier. Because when you, sometimes the application for these grants as well, you're pretty much going through, like you're having to answer those questions that you would in an export plan anyway. You're having to be strategic in that application. They have to see your strategy, your approach, and so you're already doing this exercise. And if you give it to a grant writer to do, you're spending a lot of work. Trust me, you're spending a lot of work prepping that grant writer, because nobody knows your business like you do. So sometimes it's in your own best interest to do the application yourself based on your business plan that you've already worked on, instead of getting someone, you're basically teaching this grant writer about your business. So sometimes it's in your best interest, saves money, just to write that application yourself. But it has to come from somewhere. You have to do the preparation first before you can apply for funding for grants, etc. So that's my big piece of advice.
Thank you so much, Laura. Are there any questions from our attendees in regards to funding? You know, is anyone going through that process, whether it's they're looking for grants or they're starting to build those investor relationships or looking to? Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of funding and grant, I've been going through a lot of links, a lot of central government and federal government grant and funds. Most of the links are here. The point is, how do you approach, right? So I, as a founder, maybe my taste is on the product development and business strategy. So I needed some partner to get into this kind of a processing, right? This is a process, right? We need to present, we need to go with that. So I got a couple of people approach me on that, and when I was discussing with them, how you usually go for it from your strategic perspective. Like Kaylee was telling, like if she was looking at it, it's not an HR department job. Yeah, right. Like we have to look into it. Or how your experience? How did you take the step to forward? You yourself taking it, or somebody else to be there, or did you hire third party from the to help you out to this this grant process?
In terms of my experience, I've always written all the grants. To Laura's point, you literally, if you write one good, like we didn't have a business plan, but after having to write a few grant applications and award applications, we had like a very nicely built out business plan, essentially with an explanation of our company, you know, our wins, all that sort of thing. And so that became kind of like one source of truth that we constantly updated. And then we were able to just like copy paste stuff from that into different applications. And so you should be able to like reuse this thing constantly. And so that's my recommendation. I owned it, and I still pretty much own all of our grant stuff. It's not a huge lift anymore because it's pretty much just we've built a process around it. And so I completely agree. Like actually hiring a grant writer is probably going to be more detrimental than anything, because they don't understand your business. You're going to spend so much time with that grant writer. Plus now you have ChatGPT. So I use ChatGPT all the time. And so you can get it to help kind of finesse the description of your business to make it really pretty as you start applying for these different grants and awards. I mean, if anybody's in BC, we applied for New Ventures BC competition, and that was one of the best things we ever did because it forced us to build out this like really solid business case. And I've used that for so many things further down the line.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question there, Tom. Okay, so we're gonna head into our networking breakout rooms. This has been a really great discussion. We've covered quite a lot. I was going through my questions, and I think organically some of the questions that I was going to ask just came up in conversation as well. But if there's any further questions that you have for our speakers or, you know, to your fellow founders in the room, these networking breakout rooms are a really great opportunity for you to do that. I encourage everyone to stay as much as they can.